It was 1971 and I was in the third grade. Although I was somewhat shy, I was a good student and I got along with everyone. Short kids, fat kids, jocks, even a select group of girls, which was unheard of in the 1970s. School for me was a fun and safe place to be. It seemed to be a regular day as my classmates and I were finishing up our math exam. My friends and I were fidgeting in our seats, anxiously awaiting that glorious sound of the bell that announced recess time. Our teacher made sure that every day our class went outside for recess. We often ran and played games, but mostly we just lied on the grass looking up at the sky, or we'd read our favorite comic book with our friends. Usually things were quite peaceful. However, today was not a usual day. My friends and I noticed a commotion over by a tree and we ran over to join the crowd. A big circle had formed and in the center was one of my friends on the ground being punched by Sean Damron. Sean was the most feared bully at school who had repeated the third grade twice. Everyone watched, but no one dared do or say anything. I hesitated at first. However, I somehow mustered up the courage to yell, "Hey, leave him alone!" This action changed my life forever. The crowd grew silent as my outburst continued to echo. All of Sean's fury turned on me, and with an evil look in his eye, he said, "You and me, at the park at 3 o'clock. What had I done? The meanest bully at school had just challenged me to a fight. My friends stared at me with a look of despair, as though sensing that my time on this planet was limited to just a few short hours. I wasn't looking for trouble or attention, but it seems I got it anyway. Immediately, the whispers began. After recess, our class went to lunch. Only one of my friends sat with me while the others avoided me like the plague. I didn't blame them. After all, it was Sean Damron, and anyone that was an ally of mine became an enemy of his. Lunch was over at 12:30, and we headed back to class. As we walked through the halls, my classmates were staring at me and whispering predictions about my fate. I remember glancing at the clock often, and for some reason, time was moving extremely fast today. Normally, I couldn't wait for time to expire, but today I needed more time to think. The scenarios kept running through my mind. Should I fight, or should I ride my bike home? Should I go to the office and say I'm sick so that my parents would pick me up? I needed more time to think. The 3 o'clock dismissal bell rang, signaling not only that school had ended, but also decision time. I remember getting on my bike and contemplating whether I should ride home or show up to fight. I actually started to ride away, and then it occurred to me that I would be seen as a coward and I probably would have to face Sean eventually anyway. I turned my bike around and I headed for the park. There was a bloodthirsty crowd waiting to see the main event, and Sean the bully was there licking his chops. He pounced, pushing me down, and immediately gets me into a headlock. I felt weak and helpless, and I was certain that I would be beaten up pretty badly. My friends were there, but they did not dare intervene or even cheer for me, because they did not want to suffer the same fate as mine. Sean was about to make his signature move of punching my face when everyone noticed a man walking towards the crowd. It seems my little brother got news of the fight and decided to rush home and tell my father. Sean immediately released me, but he did not look scared. He was not intimidated by my father and actually stared him down as if he was sizing up his next fight. I knew I was saved from annihilation because certainly my father would give the old speech about how we should not fight. To my surprise, my father, with his broken English, declared that we should resume the fight. I could not believe that my father was actually allowing the fight to continue. I didn't have time to analyze my father's response because Sean was ready to continue the beating. and as if a switch inside of me turned on, I began to throw punches, and eventually one of them caught Sean right in the nose. I was enraged, and instead of stopping, I continued punching until I felt my father's huge arms as he reached out and swooped me up off the ground. My father told me to get my bike, and when we arrived at the car, he picked it up and put it in the trunk. I sat in the front seat, and we both remained silent until we got home. Once we got home, the only words he told me were, "Now everyone at school will know that you are not afraid." Next morning, I went through the usual motions of getting ready for school, except that I was still nervous about the consequences of the fight. I wondered if I would get in trouble at school for fighting, and even worse, I wondered if Sean still wanted to fight some more. I remember looking at my mother just before leaving the house. I noticed the worried look on her face, which did not boost my confidence at all. As I approached the bicycle rack at school, I noticed a couple of my friends waiting for me as though they were reporters waiting to get the latest scoop. As we walked to the class, they commented on the events of the fight and asked what happened once they left. When we arrived to our classroom, others joined in and listened intently, but I really didn't have much to say. All of a sudden, the crowd became silent as Sean approached us in his usual rough manner. For a few tense moments, both of us stared at each other, and I really thought a fight would break out right then and there. Instead, Sean extended his hand and offered up a truce. It seems that my father's tactics worked, and I was now respected even by the fiercest bully at school.